Ato, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, for being a guest on the podcast today. Um, as you know, I've been like a lifelong fan, so it's definitely like a big deal for me having you on the podcast. And yeah, just really eager to kind of like talk track with you and everything that you've been up to in and out of the sport. So yeah, first off, before we get started, just how are you doing today? Excited for that? So at the moment, it is May the 4th. So Diamond League starts tomorrow, so we're kind of on the eve of like the international track season getting going. So how's everything? And you excited for the 2023 season?
I'm more excited for this year than I was for last year. Last year, we were coming off the Olympics. Typically, we have a down year after the Olympics. Not typically, but sometimes, because people have put so much into their Olympic season. And last year, I mean, I was pretty open about it. I thought last year's Worlds, if not the best, were tied for the best. And then you look at how this season has started already. Just look at what's happened in college, right? In university here with with the 60 meter record, and Julian Alfred running just crazy. I've already said I think she's gonna translate that to a great outdoor season. And that's before we start talking about Ryan Krauser and Femke Bol and what Sha'Carri started out with and what Sharika started out with, and Sydney going to a new event and Michael Norman going to a new event and Fred Curley and the Olympic champion talking shit to each other back and forth. I think it's going to be a better season. I think we may even look back and go, wow, these last 2 years of track and field were about as good as they have been in a long time.
Yeah, and without that, we haven't even mentioned the high schooler running 9.8 wins. So obviously, I'm biased towards the sprints, as I would guess you probably are a little bit as well.
I am too.
Um, yeah. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a very interesting season, and obviously, um, people want to do well this year because obviously it sets them up going into an Olympic year next year as well. So kind of set the tone and give them some confidence, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. So these days you're probably best known for being a sprint analyst. And I know that your social media and everything you do, you're like trying to really do a good job of growing the sport. You had the weekly Instagram live things going on during lockdown to try and sort of promote track and field athletes from past and present. Was this kind of thing something you always wanted to do, or was it sort of just like I don't want to say fell into it, but through your track career, this was kind of like seemed like a natural progression for
I think if I am honest with myself, I was always headed here somehow. And I tell you why. Back in the days of AOL, and this is going to be before your
you?
time.
That is back in the day
Um,
AOL.
there was a message board on AOL that I discovered. This must have been like in 1995.
Okay.
And I was like, "Ooh, people talking track on the internet." Like this at the time, of course, AOL. This is the infancy of the internet. Remember, this is 1995.
Uh-huh.
And I created this name called Speed Kills, SPEEDKLS, right? And essentially I just go in there after practice every day and hype up my people, talk trash about, whoever we didn't like. And it got so big that they gave me my own section in the chat. So for those who are really old track fans, they remember the mysterious Speed Kills board on AOL. So I look and I go, I'm like the Dr. Dre of this thing. It's like I was online hyping the sport, talking trash, trying to share my passions, debating with people back and forth. I mean, that'd be 30 years ago in
Yeah.
2 years.
Yeah.
So I think when people say, look, you're an Uber fan, you're a coach now. You know that there's a lot of like, I want to say McDonald's out there, McDonald's offerings and Chick-fil-A offerings. If that's how you like your track and field stuff served to you, there's lots of that. Some of them I actually enjoy. Well, one or two of them I actually enjoy. I always wanted to be 60 minutes. I always wanted to be 60 minutes. I wanted to be 60 minutes because of my age, and I wanted to be 60 minutes because I had done that when I was young. And when I think of the people who I like to hear broadcast, the Bryant Gumbels, anybody on 60 Minutes, obviously. I want people who, yes, they're bringing their opinion, but they're also bringing some intelligence, and I can understand them, and it's not some stupid hot take that can't be affirmed or denied. You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah, 100%.
so initially, I'd probably say, "Oh no, I never thought I'd be here." But my life says that, yeah, I was always headed for exactly where I am right now, because I have always felt like if you want to have your sport be popular, you have to have a huge online presence.
Yeah, okay. And I think one of the things that like hot takes, like I mean, that's the internet's full of them, right?
Hot
And
takes,
like
hot
social
takes to
media.
me just means hot takes to me just means you thought of something, maybe you were high. You thought of something and you wrote it out, and now 8 million people are like I saw something the other day where somebody said, give we don't give like Asafa Powell enough credit for what he did. And I'm like, no, Asafa, I think, got credit for what he did. I have a problem with people trying to take what he did and sort of excuse what he didn't do. Right. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, so because he ran all those races and because he ran those fast times, that somehow puts him on some kind of pedestal, where when you look at his world and Olympic record, it's like, yeah, that's something we can debate. So anyway, I
Yeah,
just feel like you see what I'm saying? So I
yeah,
I am not interested in opinions without some backing, I guess.
yeah, absolutely. I think you need to have some substance behind the claim, behind the opinion, in order to be able to back it up. And I think that I love social media and I hate it at the same time because social media allows you to connect, it allows you to kind of share ideas, but then obviously it's only like snippets of the idea. So going back to what you're saying, like the fast food equivalent rather than the 60 minutes, it means that you're confined to however many characters to share your opinion, and it doesn't give you enough time or enough space to back it up. So anybody just writes anything. And then if you've got enough followers, then people cling on to it like fact. And it's like, yeah,
And then here come the personal attacks, and I get enough of that with the NFL. I'm a huge NFL fan, everybody knows, but yeah, I think that for my little corner of the track and field universe, you're only going to get one kind of thing with me. I really like, every now and then I go back and I look at some of those Instagram lives. I was watching the one with Anna Hall most recently, and I go, this is what I want to see. So this is what I am going to
yeah,
produce. I want to hear Anna Hall talk about, growing up with her sisters and how everybody's athletic. So you go, oh, the next time you see her, I think you're more likely to remember that than, what her PR was in high school.
yeah, absolutely. Kind of like the personal connection. And I like that. I like the fact that, I mean, on a smaller level, like this is essentially what I was doing with the podcast was every now and then, like I'd see a track athlete or a sprinter be interviewed on a podcast and I liked it. I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to that. But there weren't that many of them around. So I just felt that I was in a position where maybe I could at least try and start it. So I'm trying to kind of develop content that if I were the consumer, is something that I would like.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Um, so it's not only like media and social media stuff you've done since being an athlete. I'm probably going to miss some stuff out here, but I know you got your pilot's license. I know you're involved in coaching. Um, there's two things, so I'm sure I've missed some stuff out. So what else have you been doing since? And do you miss being an athlete? Is this kind of, do you feel like you found your domain now, or is it like you just look back and sort of you probably have romantic views or romantic opinion of being an athlete was like, but do you wake up in the morning and think, oh man, I wish I could still go out and compete? And I saw something, you shared a story actually from, it was one of your posts from a couple of years ago, and I think the caption was, athletes don't miss waking up to practice, but they miss competing. So but yeah, how do you kind of feel about that?
I miss the big things. I don't, I mean, no, nobody misses practice. Although, when you were in a group like mine, that is
Mm-hmm.
such a part of my life. I mean, I have a lifetime of memories stored up here from stupid stuff at practice and the interactions with Inger and John and Maurice and Larry and everybody, Marie Jose Perec, everybody that was in that group, that everybody knows. So that part of me is well satisfied. I think if I had like any real career regrets, I think that I'd get stronger pangs for like being an athlete.
Mhm.
I miss being an athlete on the day of the 100-meter final in the Olympics.
Yeah,
I miss
okay.
being an athlete on the day of the 100-meter final at the World Championships. Those are the days that I want to those are the days I want to lace them up. I turned 50 that year. That's not going to happen. Nobody wants to see old men run. But in terms of what I have done, both in my track and field career and then after, they all have a common thread, and that is it something that I can apply my passion? Is it something that I can be passionate about? So, okay, I was a track athlete, and everybody knows I love track and field, and yes, I got to express my talent and also my love for the sport through sprinting. And then I was done. I became a politician because I thought I'm passionate about my country, and that's something I can do. That didn't last long because I realized that that's where Parliament is where passion goes to die if you love the country. Um, and then the coaching thing, I mean, I never planned to be a coach, never wanted to be a coach. I took two young girls from the city that I live in, Florida, and made them Olympians. And one has an Olympic gold medal and a bunch of records and had a great junior career. And the broadcasting is the same thing though. Because I think somehow people see you on television and think, oh, you want to be, you want to remain relevant, or
Mhm,
it's the
mhm.
money, or no, my reason for getting involved in broadcasting was singular. I wanted to continue to be able to express my passion for my sport, and I couldn't run anymore. So
Yeah.
when you see me getting excited on television and screaming and hollering and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, it's just my passion being expressed again. And I tell young people all the time, if you have something that you are passionate about, you are going to be better at it than something that you're not, because this doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, you're getting ready for another Diamond League season. And I'm like, yeah, my office is clean for the first time in a year. And yeah, I'm ready to go because I'm excited about it. It's like Doha every year is like a rite of passage where the season starts and we start looking towards whatever it is, World Championships, Olympics. So yeah, as I've tried to keep the passion as the common thread in anything that I've done, in my life.
Yeah, okay. And I think that one of the things that you spoke about, like people want to be on TV to stay relevant and stuff, but I think that your TV presence is within track and field. So it's not you're not going out and jumping into some like reality TV, like I don't know, some chef program or whatever to try and
Exactly.
keep a public persona going. It's from my perspective at least, it is all track.
And I remind people that when you are from a small place like Trinidad and Tobago, um, there's already an Ato Boldon Stadium and Ato Boldon this and that and the other. I've been a household name back home since I
Yeah.
was 18. So the whole popularity thing and celebrity thing is like that's not something that's a big deal to me. And quite frankly, I like being anonymous, and that's why I live in the States.
Yeah, okay, okay. So like speaking about Trinidad, so obviously you were born in Trinidad, right? And you moved to the US quite young. How old were you when you moved to the States?
14.
So okay. So I mean, I guess you were old enough to sort of like remember a reasonable amount about the move and kind of like transferring from and you moved to kind of New York, am I right?
Mhm.
So moving from Trinidad to New York, that must have been quite a change.
Huge change. I didn't want to leave. And listen, I look back now, and I actually did an interview about this last week. I grew up in a utopia. So grow up in Trinidad in the 70s and 80s, you're talking about a place where the prime minister looks like you, the president looks like you. You have an incredible system of education and standard of education. It's outside the hurricane belt. There's oil in the ground. I didn't realize how upper middle class I was until I became an adult. Jetting off to California every summer. I wanted for nothing. So I didn't want to leave Trinidad. And my mother, I mean, I don't want to say kicking and screaming, but she had to convince me.
Right.
You either you don't have a choice. You're coming with me. So I landed in New York in the middle of December. They were having a hellish winter, and I was like, I'm ready to go back home. But sports saved me because first I joined the soccer team and then I joined the track team, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I always say New York made me tough because I had been so sheltered and so protected. So I went from the guy who, like, oh, the driver is there to pick you up on the priority bus route, which is this road that runs through Trinidad that only like high level people could run on, could drive on. I went from the drivers here to pick you up to get your ass on the bus and walk through the snow and ice to get to Jamaica High School on Hillside Avenue. So New York made me tough, but it was an instrumental part in getting me ready to be a young man, and certainly in terms of getting me ready to be a collegiate level and then pro level athlete. So yes, I look back on my New York years, and they weren't many. I landed there in 90. I was gone. I landed there in 89. Excuse me, 88, and I was gone by 90. So it wasn't long. It was 2 years and a little bit, but they were very critical in my development.
And then you left New York for California.
Left New York for California. My mother moved to Atlanta, where she still is.
Okay.
And I knew that I even back then at 16, 15, I knew that that probably was not the place to have a great high school career because I'd never heard anything out of Atlanta that was, and I knew the weather wasn't,
Okay.
as fantastic as California. So my mother asked my uncle if he would kind of take me in for my senior year of high school. And that was the move to make because I go out there and California, you could argue California, Texas, Florida. Those are the three best states for track and field, certainly at the high school level. So I went out there and kind of got baptized. I was good in New York, got better in California, but getting better than I was in New York still only made me third in the state in the 200 in California. But it encouraged me, and I think it challenged me enough where now I was locked in, and I felt like, okay, if you want to do this, it's there, but man, it's going to take some work.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that was one of the things I wanted to ask then. So, do you feel your career would have happened if you'd stayed in Trinidad? Do you feel like there was any chance that you would have gone on to be an Olympian or Olympic? What was it, 4 or 5 Olympic gold medals? Sorry, Olympic medals. Do you think that would have happened?
Um, I can't say for sure, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
I doubt it. If you can probably count on two hands the number of homegrown, certainly in the modern era. I'm not talking about like Paisley Crawford, 1976. Darrell Brown, and he did some of his training here. And J. Hugh Gordon. I can't think of a ton of other guys. Keshawn Walcott, but he had a Cuban coach. I can't think of a lot of homegrown Trinidad and Tobago sprinters who stayed there and were able to have remarkable pro careers. So I don't even think that I have the career that I have if I don't find John Smith. I think that would have been a completely different a completely different path for me because John was so smart about how he handled my college career. I tell people all the time, I don't think I ran 20 races non-relay for UCLA because John always knew it's like, this guy is capable of one, breaking the world record, and two, winning Olympic gold in 2 events. So let's not run him into the ground and, with 4 and 5 events every weekend for UCLA. I never ran an indoor race for UCLA. Usually my season started in April. As you know, NCAA's is in June. So I breezed through UCLA, never lost a race to a collegian, and then got to the pros very fresh. And as you know, that's not always the case because some of these schools, you're doing 3-4 events every weekend. You do that for 4 years or 5 years with these COVID years that they're having now. And you get out and you go, oh, whatever happened to so-and-so? It's like, well, they gave their career to that school. They don't have anything left because the tank is drained. So I was very, very fortunate with that California move.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. I think, the point there that it might not just be that season, if you're racing every week from potentially December through to June near enough, it's not just that season that you spent, but like you say, there's a whole host of, I'm not going to name any of them out of respect, but like kids coming out of college where you think, okay, this is the next big thing. And then it's not the next big, you almost never hear of them again. So I think definitely like being striking that balance between doing what's best for the team and doing what's best for the individual as a collegiate coach, I think it's probably quite it's a difficult one to strike. And if it doesn't pan out right for the team as well, like if you're being very kind of sort of like generous or sensitive towards an individual and it doesn't pan out well for the team, then you're probably held accountable for that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so kind of again, kind of just skipping back a bit, we will talk a little bit more about John Smith in a minute, but you played soccer growing up as well, right? Were you playing that in Trinidad as well before you moved to the States? Were there any other sports you were involved?
No. I never took to cricket. I remember my father being very frustrated about that. And as a result, he bought me this catching machine, which was basically just string that was wound pretty tightly, and he'd throw the ball at it, and then you'd have to catch the tennis ball. I think he had real concerns about my hand-eye coordination. That machine actually helped my reflexes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
without knowing it, my father probably gave me my bullet start. But no, I had no real interest in doing other sports. When you were growing up and watching Maradona and these guys dominate, and of course that amazing World Cup in Mexico in '86. What year were you born?
I was born in '82, so
Yeah,
I don't remember '86, but definitely being English and Maradona '86, like that's quite well known.
Oops, I forgot. I forgot for a second that Mexico '86 is probably not your favorite soccer memory.
I mean, I'm fine with it, but yeah, the hand of God, like that definitely gets spoken about, right?
Yeah, exactly. So no, so all me and all my friends ever wanted to be was a football star, but I don't my gifts in that sport came late because I was fast, but I was so small I get pushed off the ball.
Right.
And then I moved to New York, and at age 16, and now my speed comes in like how Clark Kent discovers that glowing thing in the barn, and all of a sudden he's Superman. That's how it was for me. It was like 1 year I was like, and by 16 I'd like develop these shoulders, and I'd probably put on another 15 pounds, and I could just push the ball past you, and that was it. And that changed me up here. Because now all of a sudden I felt like, whoa, I have a gear that nobody else on this field has. So who knows what that would have resulted in. I don't have any like, oh, what could have been, because I got to watch my friend Dwight York tear up the premiership, and he is a little older than me, but he was in high school when I was in high school in Trinidad, so I watched him go from winning our high school championships to, oh my gosh, he's playing for Manchester United with that incredible run that they had. So I got pulled into track and field just at the right time, just when I was feeling myself a little too much in soccer. I got discovered just running down that wing by a guy who said, I watched you and you're in the wrong. He didn't say, I don't think he said you were in the wrong sport, but he said, essentially, how would you like to be in a sport where you control everything? That was it. That's right, literally the thing he had to say to get me there. And I played organized soccer one more year, my senior year, when I transferred out to San Jose. And then that was it. I never looked back. And I don't wake up on a daily basis and go, oh wow, what could have been in something else? Because I mean, look at where I am today.
So it was a pretty easy decision. Like track versus soccer was pretty
very easy. Very easy. I am a loner by nature, so it fit me.
Okay. And after you've kind of quit soccer, is that when you started taking sprinting seriously, or were you kind of sort of taking them both kind of semi-seriously in parallel for a little bit leading up to that?
I think both in 1990, that was my junior year of high school. Both in 1991, that was my senior year of high school. But once I left high school, I never had the desire. I think because I played football my whole life, and then track and field was new, it was easy to sort of leave football behind and focus on the new thing. It was like ex-girl, new girl. So, so I was no, I was. I am reminded now, including by my high school ex-girlfriend. She said all of this Emmy nomination and NBC analyst and all that stuff. She's like, I could have seen this coming because you had stuff up in your room that high schoolers didn't have. And I thought about what I had up in my room. I thought, oh my gosh, you know what I had up in my room? Sports Illustrated had laid out the 10-meter splits for
Right.
Ben
Okay.
Johnson's world record. And I literally had photocopied it and put it. You think about that for a second. I'm 17 years old.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I'm not a pro.
Yeah.
I'm third in the state, but I'm okay. I'm a very good high school athlete, but not, I'm not Noah Lyles. I'm not Arian Knighton. And yet there's something about my love of the sport and my, I guess, attention to detail where that actually not only makes sense to me, but I want to see it every day. So I grew up, with that kind of stuff. She always also reminded me of all the dates she had planned that I canceled because I was like, nope, I have to sit I have to watch film. I have a big race coming up against blah, blah, blah from blah, blah, blah school. I have to watch and see what his tendencies are so I can be ready. And I think to myself, wow, your whole young life was preparing you for where you are now. What do I do now? Look at numbers and stats and analyze video, both in my coaching and in my broadcasting. So it makes me smile a little bit when I think of how I got to here, because you'd have probably looked at me at 16 and 17 and thought something's wrong with him because he's a little obsessed with this track and field thing.
So, do you think, right? So, this is going to be a controversial statement that I make here, right? But I think, as a coach, providing the athlete is compliant, having a stupid athlete is a real advantage because they don't overthink. That you just tell them what to do and then they do it. And I think having an intelligent athlete that thinks a bit critically, they have attention to detail, they already have their own ideas formulated, and then they might challenge some of your ideas as a coach. I think it can become problematic. So I just wonder, I'm interested in your take on this. As somebody that is you're intelligent, like you say, attention to detail, you like being analytical. Do you ever think that kind of potentially got in your way, or could you see how it could have got in your way?
I think it's extremely interesting that you just said that, because one of the I have, because I was, as I said, because I've been in the public eye since I was 18. The whole what somebody says about you, that rolls off of my back because I'm used to it. When Trinis can be very critical of their own. My first Olympic performance did not go well, and pretty much I was written off. So I have this very, very thick skin. But Craig Masbach, formerly of Nike, formerly of NBC, said something once. I think he said it during a broadcast where he said, Maurice Green feels his way through 100-meter dashes, and Ato tries to think his way through. And it bothered me for months. And Craig and I are friends, still friends to this day. But it bothered me for months. And I realized that part of the reason why it bothered me is because he was right.
Yeah.
I could never turn off the thinking part of the athlete to my detriment. And what did that show up as? It showed up as, okay, I'm in a race with 7 other people. All right, he has no chance. He has no chance. If he has the same stuff that I do now, I did as an athlete. And that's not how you are supposed to. And of course, this is this is like in the beginning of sports psychology and all that stuff. So I don't know if I was ever properly conditioned up here to kind of let all of my talent come out. I mean, I obviously did very well. I have 8 world championship and Olympic medals, but that consistently high performance, I don't know if I had, and I think it's because I was my own worst enemy. To answer what you asked, you know how that shows up to me, since we're being controversial? When the athletes are young, is typically when they get their best results with me.
Right.
If you look at anybody I've coached, right? When they're young, and if you tell them, okay, we gotta run to Orlando, and they go, okay, coach, what's pace? That's when I do my best coaching, because I say it, they do it, the results come.
Yeah.
As they get older, it's like, well, what about this? And I have this with my NFL clients too, with my with my uh with my guys getting ready for the NFL, because some of them are, their personality, it's type A personality. That's why they're who they are. And you're trying to teach them this new thing called the dry phase. And he's like, yeah, my high school coach used to say that, and I'm like, I have forgotten more about the dry phase than your high school coach will ever know. So stop right there. Do you understand where the word dry phase comes? You understand which group made the dry phase, gave the dry phase to the world? So I have found that that's exactly the case, where it takes, I don't want to say a stupid athlete, but it takes, the great combination takes an athlete who is almost completely trusting of the system and the coach. And then the results come. And if that changes, sometimes the results can either decline or flatline.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like sprinting, it's not a cerebral activity, right? It's not. You've just got to be you've got to be conditioned, I think, so that it's kind of on autopilot by the time that you get there. And I think
that's a good, that's exactly how it is.
And I think one of the things that you said that I found quite interesting was, could you have kind of, sports psychology was still in its infancy kind of during the early stages of your career, and could you have conditioned yourself to think less? And I almost feel like that's like a paradoxical statement, because I think that if you're analytical, I don't know how you stop being analytical without trying to analyze how analytical you need to be. And so you're still analyzing, and then you're trying to calculate how little to calculate, and then you just end up in some sort of like mind fuck where it's just, I think it's just not headed it's not headed in the right direction anyway.
And you don't want to be ungrateful for your gifts, because if somebody says, okay, so based on what makes you you, yeah, you'll be world champion, but you're never going to win Olympic gold. But you're also going to have a skill that can feed you for the rest of your life. I think a lot of people might sign up for that, as opposed to you're going to be the greatest thing ever. But 5 years after you retire, 5 years after you retire, nobody's going to be able to find you, and you won't have a clue what to do with the rest of your life. So I think, I always say that rearview mirror gets a lot clearer the more you drive. I look back and I go, yeah, some of the things that you used to curse back then or feel like, why me back then? You look now and you go, want to reconsider that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. Like, the traits that you have, right, they might not be a great skill set for one activity, but for something else, they're going to be like perfectly aligned. So, and I feel like that's kind of like a little bit what you're talking about here. Cool. All right.